I think about the business of writing, maybe too much. It's kind of all the time. All the time I spend reading and watching and talking, it's usually about storytelling and different approaches to storytelling, and I'm endlessly figuring out how you tell stories. For an example, last night I was watching something and thinking about memories. I think it was to do with this business of them knocking down our old school and different people coming out with memories. And the repetition of days, of course, you don't hold all those days in your head. And what memory does is contract things. It's not necessarily being selective. It's just piling things together. Time in your head becomes concertinaed. And when we tell a story, we kind of burrow through those pleats in time. And so I was thinking about this at the back of my head when I was watching an episode of Thriller by Brian Clemens from 1975, and also looking at Facebook and looking at the Facebook discussion about this old school. And I've been writing down some memories of that school, some good memories and some horrible memories as well of that school. And my point being that I'm thinking endlessly about stuff like that, how you turn day upon day upon day into a story that has some kind of cumulative effect and is told for a reason. And I was thinking about today about how you know you can or should write. It's something that I question all the time as well, although I'm in the thick of it all the time. It's a struggle to do and to be published and to keep going. It just is. 30 years since I sold my first story. I'm probably about, I think, 60 books in. 60 books of all kinds of stuff into this career, and it gets, as I think I've said before, gets no easier. I don't like to harp on and complain, but I try not to. I've been accused of complaining about my career or lack of career, usually by people who've been slightly competitive friends, shall we say. I really hate the sense of competition that happens in the kind of writerly world. I've said before, my lovely friend Patricia Dunker says, it's not a contact sport. Why are people so intent on competition? And of course, in the university environments in which I worked, UEA especially, things were very competitive. It was there that as soon as I arrived, one of my prospective MA students told me they'd read my books and they just wouldn't do, you know. This was at a party. They just wouldn't do, he said, snottily. And over the years, as I've said, various people have taken me aside and said some awful things. That horror anthologist, as I said, at a party of mine, telling me that it's just callow pastiche, this Brenda and Effie stuff. People are keen to kind of hobble you, to take you out as the competition. Maybe it's a very male thing, I don't know, although I think women can be quite sharp with each other too. I do know that men like to kick their legs out from under each other, unless they decide they are on the same team. I never really had a team. Certainly the boys' club that lots of male writers get brought into. I'm not posh and I'm not straight, so I was never given a chance. And there are no boys' teams for people who come from comprehensives in the north and all that stuff, who go to the wrong kind of university, which, I don't know, I was surprised to find that writing was still so full of kind of old-fashioned people, people who are privileged in old-fashioned ways along the lines of class and education uh, families and stuff like that. Money. I foolishly, as a kind of 90s person, thought of it being a kind of meritocracy, and it seemed like that briefly. But what you've got to have underneath all of that is a good sense of who you are and what you can do and your own talent. And I think talent is a much abused word. When I was at UEA lecturing, I was surrounded by people who didn't believe in talent, who believed in craft, which is a good thing to learn about and believe in, absolutely. But I do believe in talent as well, and that we are given gifts by some means, and we've all got different ones. But there was a kind of militant disbelief in talent, as if it was some old-fashioned, almost kind of semi-religious thing that had to be discounted and undermined. And it's just the kind of rigorous, intellectual, crafty application of rules and a kind of snooty carpentry that literary fiction was seen as odd, because they weren't keen on theory, really, the people I'm talking about. Mostly because they hadn't gone through English literature to get there. They'd gone through media. I'd gone through the route of 1980s and 90s literary theory and queer studies as it was then, and an absolute belief in my talent and my abilities. So I was coming at it from a different kind of angle. That belief that you know what you're doing, that you can do this, I think was instilled by encouragement at the right times. I go right back to my mum, who, had fought to keep me and bring me up when she'd been thrown out of her home at 16 for being pregnant. Thrown out in the sense that she was given a choice. You either abort him or have him adopted, or you leave and live with my father's side of the family. This has been disputed by various dimwits on my mum's side of the family, but they don't know anything. We know the truth of what went on. I was brought up in that world where my mum wasn't welcome, and had to go and live with this rather rough side of the family, of my dad's side of the family, where they smoked and drank and shouted and played football and played darts and yelled at the telly and yelled at each other, and she sat rather quietly in the corner, very small and very young. And then she had me, and from then on it was us against the world. And she told me from the very earliest, you can do what you want. You have all the abilities and all the talents, and you will do anything you want. It's a very powerful thing to be told, and a very powerful thing to believe. And I've never doubted that. I've never doubted my own abilities. I've doubted the products that I've done, that I've created. I've doubted that I've done them right at times, that I've put them to good use, which is a struggle. That's one of the struggles, making the good use of your time, and is this the right thing? Have I done this right? But I've never doubted my own kind of intrinsic abilities, or even the question, should I be doing what I'm doing? I know I should be. And again, that's very powerful, because I know people who doubt themselves all the time, and people who have never found the thing that they should be doing at all sorts of ages, and it tortures them. If people don't know what it is they should be doing with their lives, creatively or for work or just in living their lives, it can be very bleak. And And for some people, they go looking and looking. I knew that I would be making stories from very early on, in whatever form, in words and pictures and whatever form. I always knew that. And I was encouraged by my mum, by my nana, who was the one who chucked her out, who actually was a wonderful big nana to me. Once I was there, I was, in her eyes, perfect. And she read to me, and I think I was her favourite. I'm sure that'll be disputed. I always felt it, and she talked to me, and that was something. Adults always talk to me like another adult. I couldn't stand being talked to as if I was a kid. I couldn't stand being patronised. So I like to get the real story from them. I like to know about their lives and the past and the world around us, and I would ask questions. So I was listening, antennae bristling all the time as a kid. And I always knew that I could do stories. And when I went to school, I was glad that they kind of could see what it was I wanted to do. That reading and books and drawing and painting and making stories was what I was interested in. I wish education had been a bit more flexible, so I'd spent less time learning the absolute rubbish that you end up having to learn, and could concentrate more on things that would have been useful. More history, perhaps, more literature, more stories, and less of the kind of abstract theoretical gubbins that you get in maths and stuff like that. And, you know, making trowels and things like that. Although I do quite like doing things with my hands, because I draw and paint and the rest of it. I've got good hand-to-eye coordination, actually. It's only my shit eyesight that spoils things like, you know, when I was at school doing metalwork or playing games. It's funny, writing about this stuff has made me think about those special moments you've got through your education where you are put off things and you cleave to other things and you follow certain lines because of people encouraging you. And you know, I remember early on giving a story to an English teacher and getting this kind of shocked reaction. It was a story about a girl who lived in our town, and you'd see downtown wandering about, and she was clearly, there was something slightly off kilter about her. And I'd seen her a few times on the bus and in town, and in this story, I forget what happens now, it was a very early story of mine that I gave this teacher, and there's something about her having this old ratty fur coat, and when she puts her hands in the pockets are cold. And this was the moment that my teacher went on about the perception of that in the moment. And I think looking back, I know what she means, that it was an unusual thing for a boy, a teenage boy, to write about, and to imagine this girl kind of standing in the slushy snow, waiting for the bus, slides her hands into a warm, what should be a warm pocket, but the silk of the pocket is cold. And the kind of symbolism of that. And I remember this teacher telling me about that and how she knew I could write. And it's from these little moments of people encouraging you and pushing you and nudging you on that it all kind of fits together. And those are the things you use to counteract the later slights and the later obstacles and the deliberate pushings over that you get from people. So yeah, God, I'm being a bit thoughtful and deep. I think it's the warm and maybe having some time off is making me think. deep thoughts, fairly deep thoughts, but thoughts about the level of obsession, really, which is what it is. It is obsession. I lie awake at night fretting about the stuff I write and whether it's doing the job or not. And I'm not sure at the moment if, for example, the novel I've just done is there yet, or even what it's about. Maybe I think about it too much. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to stop there because that's quite rambling, and I haven't talked about anybody else's books. I'm reading Puffball by Fay Weldon. I finished my foray into puffins, and this is our next book for our local book club, and I'm back to 1980 and Fay Weldon, which is lovely, actually. She's somebody I think of as a proper novelist, somebody who's really thinking about her place in the world and the place of people that she knows, and using stories as a way of asking questions about the way they live their lives in that time and that place. And it's wonderful how dated it's become. These are people forever in 1980, which is, I think, a very interesting time. Anyway, goodbye. I'm going to go and make some dinner now. See you again soon in the next episode. I hope I will. I'll be back to talking about other people's books and not dwelling so much on my own thoughts. Okay, goodbye.